I almost couldn't believe KZ made this IM. It's just so good, it instantly became my personal favorite $20 IM. At least from what I've tried, this is my current favorite, and I will explain to you why. So hello and welcome to Aftersound Review, and this is my review for the KZ ZVX, and thank you for KZ for providing me with this review unit. And just like usual, I will break down this review from the build, fit, frequency response, sound, and comparison. They have gorgeous look, and it's not only about the looks, but it's also, you can actually feel the quality of this IM. The housing is really smooth, and it's definitely made of metal, and it has some convincing weight on it. So honestly, this is the most premium $20 IM I've ever seen, and it does feel also like that in my hand. I don't know what is this hole for. It doesn't really have any function actually, and also you may see a bit of large grills around this part, but it doesn't sound really open. It still isolates just like any other IM, and it has also the same QDC type C connector for its cable. While the cable itself is, yeah, just like usual KZ, it's okay, but the thing that I want to praise is the housing. It's made of metal, it feels really great, and it's smooth. It just feels like it's maybe around $70 or $80 IMs. It just feels really nice. Well, one thing I should note about this IM is maybe the unique thing. This is the first time I see a KZ only providing a foam ear tips. Here's the foam ear tips that I get. You get 3 sizes of the foam ear tips, but you don't get any silicone ear tips. So maybe some of you that is not used to using foam might get a little bit confusion, or maybe you don't really get a nice seal. But nevertheless, I do think that the foam that they provide is quite nice, and I could wear them daily without any complaint. But yeah, if you want to change using ear tips, I suggest you to try this Final Audio Type E, because it gives almost the same performance as the foam. Well, honestly, in terms of ergonomics only, I'm not a foam person. I can use them, but my favorite always the silicone. But for this KZ, let me show you the frequency response here, because it's exactly what I hear. When I try to change the ear tips from this KZ ZVX to another silicone tips, it somehow elevates the treble peaks around 8K there, and it does translate into some of the more noticeable sibilance. But let me tell you, it's not significant, but I can feel it definitely. So for my daily use for this, I enjoy using their stock foams, but nevertheless I also enjoy using silicone. Well, it depends on the situation. Now let's get to the sound of this IM. The tonality of this IM is definitely somehow is harmon-ish, I would say. There's a lot of elevation around the bass area, and also the upper mid-range also get elevated there, and after that you get some treble peaks and unevenness a little bit around the mid-treble area, but after that it's mostly rolled off. The low frequency of this IM, well, no matter what kind of tips that you use for this IM, I always feel that this IM has nice bass quality that goes deep. And the special thing about this, I mean, even though it doesn't have the quantities such like the KKZ HBB, KKZ HBB definitely more bassy than this IM, but the quality of the bass, the texture, the depth, the focus of the bass is simply the best that I've tried for $20. When you try some musics like for EDMs or some energetic music that have a good sub bass depth, you'll hear that this IM is actually have a really nice sub bass depth with good punch and texture. Simply said, it is my favorite, even though it's not the biggest in terms of quantity, but in terms of quality and also texture, it's actually, yeah, it's my favorite currently. Now for the mid-range, it is somehow not really my ideal kind of mid-range. It's still leaning towards upper mid-range than lower mid-range. Somehow it's making higher human voice gets a little bit more elevated, so you hear more female vocals being more forward rather than male vocals for this IM. And yes, But nevertheless, the male vocals doesn't really sound recessed. It's just a little bit more, it's not as forward as the female vocals. And just like I said, that there are some conditions, like when I'm using the final ear tips here or any other silicone tips, that does have that minor treble picks that translates into minor sibilance. But using the foam tips, I don't really get that. So it's an energetic forward vocal that is sound really clear, but maybe just with a little bit of harshness, just a little bit. I'm just being nitpicking here. But the thing that I really like is that you really feel that there's a separation from the very good quality deep kind of bass and also that forward mid-range. There's a clean separation here that makes this IM stand out above the others. So when it comes to treble, I do feel that this IM has okay quality. It's not really special. It just have enough sparkle on it for a lot of music, but it doesn't really extend well to the airy treble section. It's just okay for me, but nevertheless, it never goes into sibilance. It never goes into, metallic area. It doesn't sound metallic like any of the older KZ before. It just sounds nice, smooth, and just have enough sparkle. So in terms of tonal for this KZ ZVX, simply said, I would say that the two frequency that gets forward the most, that gets mostly elevated in all of my songs are mostly the bass area and also that upper mid-range area that are cleanly separated nicely in a really good way. But it's not the smoothest. It is simply not the smooth. If you want something that is smoother, you can go to maybe Hola or Tangzu, One They are simply more smooth in terms of tonal. But the thing that makes this IM special, it's technical. Well, the thing is, in front of me right now, I have a lot of another $20 IM like the Tangzu One Sound Note Zero, and also the CCA CRA Plus KKZ HBB here. But one thing that makes this IM stand out above the others, and for example, when I'm playing music from Kenshi Yonezu, this peace sign, right from the beginning you could hear a lot of energy from the bass area, mid-range it is forward, the mid-range is forward, and there's a really nice energetic guitar. This IM has better separation. The bass digs deep with the best quality and best texture here, while it's being neatly separated from the forward mid-range. While in the other IM, it simply feels like you hear only one layer of a bass mid-range treble. It's not really separated. But in this KZ ZVX, it's almost I have two layers. Now let's compare them directly with this Tangzu One Honestly, in terms of vocal performance, I would say that the Tangzu One sounds more natural. It has less treble picks, it has less sibilance, and it simply sounds more bodied. It's simply more natural for me. But again, in terms of vocal clarity, bass texture, and any other department, I would say that the Tangzu One is paled in comparison with the KZ ZVX. It's simply more clear in any kind of songs. And even though Tangzu One vocals is a little bit more natural, I would say that I definitely prefer this KZ ZVX. Now comparing them with my previously favorite IM for $20, the CCA CR Plus, I love them because they have simply the best treble extension that doesn't sound metallic for me. The original CCA CR sounds a bit too metallic for me. The CCA CR Plus definitely fixed that. But compared to the KZ ZVX, even though the CCA CR Plus has better treble extension and more zing up there, more airy treble up there, but in terms of separating things, the bass from the mid-range and also giving that kind of two-layered sensation, the KZ ZVX is just simply above the CCA CR Plus. And again, that's what makes this IM special. Now let's notch up the games a little bit. Comparing them with $35 IM like the Kiwi or Cadenza, so it's almost twice the price now. Well, the keyboard's cadenza simply sounds more natural. I know it can be a little bit boring for some of you, but in terms of naturality, I would say that the keyboard's cadenza is one of the most natural IM for $50 and below. It simply sounds more natural, the mid-range is more sweet, it is more lifelike with better mid-range depth to it, especially male vocals sounds more bodied. But again, in terms of separating things, when like for example Kenji Yonezu's Peace Sign or any other soundtracks that have a lot of bass and also more energetic mid-range, the KZ ZVX has simply better separation. Again, it almost feels like there's a two layers playing at the same time here. The KZ ZVX is simply better at that. Even though KZ ZVX maybe doesn't sound as natural as the keyboard's cadenza. Now comparing them with this Tin C2, for me the Tin C2 is one of the most detailed IM for under $50 here, because simply it has tight bass, well-tuned mid-range, but very nice treble extension that somehow elevates some micro details in some songs. Well, in terms of technical, it depends on the song. Sometimes when the song has some micro details hidden in the upper treble area, you do get that micro nuances better in the Tin Hi-Fi C2 definitely. But again, when the music is really bassy with a good amount of mid-range, somehow I do feel better, again, better layers separation from this KZ ZVX. But that being said, if you ask me personally, I still prefer the Tin Hi-Fi C2, because at the end I'm not a really bass head, and I do feel that when I'm using both at the same time, I do feel that maybe the KZ ZVX, because it has that mid treble picks and not really extended treble, it sometimes can sound a little bit harsher around the mid treble area, while the Tin Hi-Fi C2 almost have no boundaries around the treble area. So it definitely depends on what song are you listening to and what is your preference. But if you ask me personally, I do prefer the Tin Hi-Fi C2. And how is it compared to now $40 IM like the KKZ HBB Con? Well, simply said, KKZ HBB Con is much harder to drive than the KZ ZVX, but it rewards much better. For me, this Con is just simply already above the rest that I've mentioned before. It has better layers. It's obvious it has that woofer driver for dedicated woofer driver there, and it does translates to better have layers from the bass and mid-range. It has better soundstage, it has overall better imaging. Yeah, simply said, now KZ ZVX cannot win in any kind of battle against the KKZ HBB Con. KKZ HBB Con simply wins in every category, but it's twice the price of the KZ ZVX, and it's also much harder to drive. Now, as the conclusion, I would say that in terms of tonality, this is not my ideal kind of thing. I would say that I do feel like the lower mid-range could be a little bit better, and also that treble picks, somehow it's still a little bit annoying because I don't hear treble picks from when I'm listening to 1R. It's still there, it's still a little bit harsh. Maybe I'm just being really nitpicking here, trust me, it's minor, but it's a little bit noticeable after you tried the 1R. And also the treble extension could be a little bit better for me. But in terms of technical, I simply say that it is the best $20 I've ever tried. It's not the most extended, but in terms of ability of separating that bass from the mid-range, it's simply the best, at least for now, that I've ever tried. So that's all I could say about this IM, and thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and this is my final rank for its tonal and its technical, and yeah, this is my final score for the KZ ZVX. This is simply my current favorite for $20. See you next time. Bye bye.